right, we'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, March 21st, 2024. Present at the front table to my far left is Nora Vitale, a non-voting member. Right, Nora? Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Evening.
Ed McGargy, a voting member.
Good evening.
My left, Ernie Angelos, our solicitor.
Hello.
My right, Bill Rhodes, a voting member. Good evening. Next to Bill is Jesse Poynton, a voting member.
Evening.
Gary Smith, our zoning officer. And my name is Robert Kane, and I'm a voting member. We have two cases on the agenda tonight. The first, before we begin, Bill, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Please rise and repeat after me. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, we already did that.
Do you have a triple backup if she can't?
Yeah.
All right, our first case will be Z2405, Marion Golf Club, owners of 450 Ardmore Avenue, Ardmore, PA, DC folio number 2204-0002900, who request variances from the provisions of section 182604B and 182604F1A to permit construction, reconstruction, and alterations of structures and grounds within a floodplain area as necessary to permit proposed improvements to the clubhouse, including the removal of two existing structures located within the floodplain and the construction of an elevated steel grate utility platform on 15 2-inch diameter caissons with stair access, and a variance from the provisions of section 182-720B to permit the disturbance of steep slopes as necessary for the construction of utility and conduit trenching to be maintained in connection with the proposed clubhouse improvements. Property is zoned INS, located in wards 3 and 5. Wow, that's a mouthful. Come on up, Mark.
Good evening. May it please the board, my name is Mark D'Amico. I'm an attorney with an office at 109 Chesley Drive, Media, PA 19063, excuse me. Tonight I have the pleasure to represent Marion Golf Club, the fee owner of the property that's the subject of this hearing, and I've handed to each of you a packet of exhibits pre-marked to save a little time. The first exhibit is A1, and that is a copy of the deed into Marion Golf Club. So the property that we are focusing on tonight is the East Course, which consists of the main clubhouse, the East Golf Course, driving range, parking lot, the golf course maintenance facilities, and consists of approximately 126 acres fronting along both sides of Ardmore Avenue. And as the chairman just mentioned, the property zone in the INS district. The backdrop of the application is that the Marion is finalizing plans for a significant renovation to the interior of the clubhouse. They're almost entirely interior renovations, but there are some minor work to the exterior, including work to the outdoor area that faces the first tee, the bar area. As part of the renovation project, the club has determined that emergency generators and a new HVAC system, which requires a new chiller, are necessary. The only feasible location for this equipment is on the opposite side of the driveway from the clubhouse. Now I'd ask you just to orient you, knowing the engineer is coming up in a minute, but just to give you a little orientation, I've got Exhibit A2 in your packet. It's an aerial photo, and in the little box is essentially the area in question. That's the proposed location for the platform upon which will be situated the generators and the HVAC chiller. And as you can see immediately to the right of that, you'll see there's a little retaining wall, and on top of that, that's where the existing generators for the clubhouse are now. So, and again, just to make sure everybody's oriented, to the right of that box, the big building is the main clubhouse. To the left of the main clubhouse is the main driveway. To the top of the page is Ardmore Avenue. So as you go down the page, you're going into the parking lot for the clubhouse. And then over to the right is the golf course. So just to comment briefly on the relief, this zoning hearing board granted similar relief in March of 2009 for the golf maintenance facility. Again, looking at A2, that's not on A2, but it's at the, if you go down to the bottom of the page, a couple hundred feet. Some of you may remember that we were before you. The golf maintenance facility was completely redone, similarly located in that everything on the property is very close to the creek. And there was a necessity to get relief both to work in the flood-prone area and for steep slope disturbance for one of the two golf maintenance buildings. Again, that relief was granted in 2009. And then in December of 2017, the club appeared before the zoning hearing board for relief for work in the floodplain for the reconstruction of the historic East Golf Course, and that included raising the 11th green by raising the retaining wall a couple feet, and then there was an above-ground HVAC system. There was a building required for that to the left of the 11th green, and some other retaining wall work as part of that project. All that was in the flood-prone area and needed relief from the zoning hearing board, which this zoning hearing board granted. All that work was performed by the club successfully and without any soil erosion control problems, and had no adverse effect on the flood height or the neighboring properties. So I intend to call two witnesses tonight. Kevin Richards is our civil engineer for the project, and he'll review in detail the plans and the hydraulic study that was performed. And then we also have Paula Kelly here. She's the general manager and COO of the Marion Golf Club. So I know you all have the plans, and I know nobody likes to look in the back, so we're going to put the easel up and get the plans on a foam board. But they are the same plans that were submitted with the application. Stand up there and I'll stand next to you. You want to swear me?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
Kevin Robert Richards, civil engineer.
All right. Mr. Richards, by whom are you employed?
I am employed by Alfred Benish and Company with the business address of Alfred Benish, B-E-N-E-S-C-H, and Company, with a working address of 400 1 Norwegian Plaza, Pottsville, PA 17901.
And Mr. Richards, are you a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
I am.
Okay. I'm showing you what has been marked as Exhibit A3. Would you identify that document for the board?
My professional resume, CV.
Okay. And would you give the board a little background in your experience?
I've been a civil engineer for more than 10 years with ample experience in residential subdivision projects, commercial land developments, including various projects for school districts, municipal entities, playgrounds, park projects, things like that from a design standpoint, as well as large-scale industrial development projects, business parks, things like that. And I am also a municipal engineer for numerous municipalities.
And in your experience, have you appeared before municipal zoning hearing boards and governing bodies in the Commonwealth?
I have.
Okay. And have you been recognized as an expert in those hearings?
I have.
Okay. At this point, I would ask that Mr. Richards be accepted as an expert in the field of site design and land development.
Unless there's an objection or any questions from any of the board members? Is accepted as an expert.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Richards, did your firm prepare the plans that were submitted with the application?
We did.
Okay. And to save a little bit of time, I've marked those plans, Exhibit A5 through 8, and they corresponds to the 4 pages of the plan set that we submitted. What's on the board is the last page, which is page 404 of the plan set. So I think we're going to be using that for the most part. All right, using the exhibit, and to the extent you want to refer to pictures in your hydraulic study, would you describe the existing conditions of the property?
As everybody knows, the majority of the parcel that is owned by Marion Golf Club contains the existing East Course, all 18 holes, including the driving range. The main clubhouse area is also situated, as you can see on the plan, that is the large white area. To the north of that, as was previously shown on the aerial exhibit, is a series of maintenance facilities, maintenance buildings, things like that. There's one single access extending from the south to the north off of Ardmore Avenue. And the area that we're focusing on this evening is the area that is east of the clubhouse across the main drive, where the club currently houses their dumpsters, the existing emergency generators, a facility, a building for caddy use, and then some existing storage structures.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to reference you to Exhibit A4. Would you identify Exhibit A4?
Exhibit A4 is an abbreviated hydrologic and hydraulic report prepared by my office, dated February 1st, 2024.
Okay, and that copy of this report was submitted with the application, is that correct?
It was.
Okay, and I've marked this, and the only change from what we submitted is I took the opportunity in the bottom corner by hand to mark the page numbers because they weren't all sequential. So using my pagination, page 8 and page 9, would you review those pictures for the board?
I'll give everybody a second to open that up. Page 8, again, this is showing the area that is situated below, east of the existing drive, further east from the clubhouse. The top picture is showing the 2 existing storage units. The lower picture is showing the same 2 storage units looking south, which would be looking plan left. As you can see on the right side is what we're calling an existing retaining wall. It's a gabion basket retaining wall. That is on the lowest level with Cobb's Creek off to the left.
Okay, and page 9.
Sheet 9, photo 3, as it's called out, is standing at the same spot looking north. That area there on the right is a raised garden bed. That's approximately 20 by 48 feet. And then the building off to the left is what's known as the Caddy Building. And that's about a 24 by 30 foot building. And Cobb's Creek is in that wooded area beyond the limit of the photo. And then photo 4 is, again, that's the front face of one of the structures, the storage structures, looking at the gabion wall. On the top of that gabion wall, you can see some existing dumpsters, some existing utility equipment, and then in the far background, you can see portions of the clubhouse.
Okay. All right, would you describe the uses and zoning of the surrounding properties?
Because the parcel is so large, the area in question, the railroad tracks, SEPTA railroad tracks are about 100 feet from the area in question to the east. And then farther east, up along Haverford Road, it is an R2 low-density residential district, and there's residential houses, and I think there's some commercial mixed use. I think there's a veterinarian office there, things like that.
And what's the distance between the area that we're focusing on tonight with the proposed platform and those nearest neighbors?
I'd say greater than 250 feet.
Okay. All right. Let's now focus on the zoning requests one at a time. First, the applicant is seeking a variance for temporary work within steep slopes. So first, what's a steep slope and what's a very steep slope?
Per section 182, section 720 of the Haverford Township zoning ordinance, a steep slope is any slope that is between 15 and 25%, and then a very steep slope is anything greater than 25%.
Okay. And where are the steep and very steep slopes on the plan, if you could
Yes,
identify those.
that is sheet 4. It's also the one that's up here on the easel. The gray areas are areas that are not classified as slopes at all. They're less than 15%. The green areas are the slopes, steep slopes, 15 to 25%, and then the orange areas are the very steep slopes, greater than 25%, with most of it being what would be classified as the stream bank.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you to just go over to, I think, what have we called this, Exhibit A8? Okay. And identify specifically where it is that you're proposing to disturb the steep slopes and why.
Disturbance for a trenching of underground utility conduits. Essentially, all the upgrades that we talked about, all platforms to get to that area, they need to install underground conduits, duct bank. Right, is I think 6 conduit duct bank. Essentially, the plan would be dig a trench, put in the conduit, fill it back up again, stabilize it, no grading, stabilization to be exactly what it was in the existing. Next to the steep slope. No proposed grading, no proposed modifications, permanent to these steep slopes. It's classified as temporary because it is digging a trench, utility in the ground, covering it back up again and restabilizing it to match the existing.
Okay. So what steps have you, your testimony is obviously that this is quite a small disturbance and a temporary disturbance, right? So having said that, what steps have you taken to avoid erosion and runoff, and what type of permits will you be seeking from the township to do this work?
We have had correspondence with Haverford Township and Haverford Township's engineer, and we will be submitting for a grading permit application to be reviewed by the township engineer, which will include all applicable erosion control measures, restabilization, temporary stabilization if needed, to ensure that latent water or other erosion pollutants are conveyed to.
Okay, thank you. So second, applicant seeking a variance for construction of the platform in the floodplain. Would you describe the floodplain location?
Looking at, again, this sheet 4, blue line that is shown.
Okay. All right. And have you considered other locations to locate this platform?
Early in the preliminary stages of this project, when we knew that most of the upgrades were going to require some exterior improvements, some more equipment, things like that, we did evaluate where it could be located. The loading dock area, building, however, that's pretty much at maximum capacity and does still need to be available for dropping off, loading, unloading, things like that. Then the parking lot, elimination of parking was a no-go from a zoning standpoint. And then obviously we didn't want it to be out on the other side of the clubhouse, adjacent to the golf course, where it would have been in full view, I believe, first the west side of the golf course. So then we started looking to where the generators and equipment were.
And if I'm just going to stop there, Kevin, would you just point to where the existing generators are in relation to the black rectangle, which is the proposed platform, right?
Yes, the black rectangle is the proposed platform, the existing smaller variety. That Gabion basket wall that was shown in the one exhibit there above that, about 5 feet lower than the dumpsters.
Okay. Have you met with the township engineer to discuss the proposed location of the platform?
Yes. Design team, as well as representatives of as well as the township engineer. Site meeting back in early October 2023. Talked about the project. We did events and we did walk the area at that point. The platform was in an altered location, and the township engineer made a comment based on the visuals and the other, all the structures that are there, the other constraints. He suggested that the platform be relocated to the.
Okay, so it's essentially what you're testifying to is that the township engineer suggested you to push it back from the creek in the location where we are proposing to locate it.
Correct. Just
Okay.
from a flow standpoint, far away from the creek as well.
Okay, all right. So going back to Exhibit A4, you said your office prepared the hydrology and hydraulic report. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, what I'd like you to do is just describe the findings and conclusions of that report.
So that report details the Cobb's Creek floodplain area proposed. We did evaluate the floodplain from two criteria standpoints. One was from a footprint impact, how big the footprint of the two existing structures were in relation to the footprint of the elevated utility platform. The other one was more of a flood analysis of an obstructed cross-sectional area. I'm going to flip pages here to it's an appendix within the H&H report, which shows the cross-sectional area. Cross-sectional area is a elevation evaluation of the actual face of the buildings that are there now in relation. I don't know which sheet.
So is that the same as
Yes.
page 16?
Well, we
14, I think it is, Mark.
I'm sorry. 14.
14 is the existing condition.
Okay.
So
Right.
our report evaluated it from a footprint standpoint, plan view, and then a cross-sectional obstructed area standpoint. Existing footprint of the two structures that are to be removed is 520 square feet. And the proposed footprint of this elevated utility platform, which is to be raised above the 100-year floodplain elevation on 15 2-foot diameter concrete caissons. The footprint of those within the floodplain, in addition to the steps that will allow maintenance access to the platform, add up to 80 square feet. So that's a reduction of footprint within the floodplain from 520 to 80. And then in a cross-sectional obstruction standpoint, the two buildings had an obstruction of 150 square feet. And now switching to sheet 16, that's where we show get a better representation of exactly what this platform is going to look like in relation to the floodplain. All of the equipment, the platform will sit above the 100-year floodplain elevation, and the only obstruction would be caissons, and then as well as we did add in an obstruction for the steps. So that obstructed cross-sectional area is 45 square feet. So in that evaluation, we're decreasing 150 square feet to 45. With that evaluations, conclusion of the report is that the installation of this utility platform with removing the two existing structures would cause no adverse impacts to the floodplain of Cobb's Creek.
Okay. Just to be clear, could you tell the board what the caisson is? Is that a poured concrete
It's good.
tube, basically? Is that
Correct.
okay?
It would be 15 of them to support the equipment on the platform.
Okay. So the foundation, essentially, these caissons are poured, they dry, and then the platform gets laid on top.
Correct.
Okay.
A steel grated platform to allow water to.
Okay. And then the chiller and the generators would then be placed on top of the platform.
Correct.
Okay.
Above any potential floodplain elevations.
Okay. All right. Mr. Richards, have you reviewed the standards for variances at section 182 dash 1004A of the Haverford Township zoning ordinance? Okay, and as a professional engineer, having studied the property, the existing conditions, and the other details to which you've testified, you have an opinion as to whether or not the standards for variances are met where relevant?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and in particular, are there any unique physical circumstances with regard to this application?
Yes, as touched on briefly prior in the past questions, just the existing nature of the site, the existing uses, minimal areas which are installed to help facilitate the needed utility improvements. Existing utility equipment is as can be proposed, and it is being elevated above any impact that it might have to South Creek floodplain.
Okay, and any of you, is it your opinion that you've designed this to have the minimum relief necessary?
Yes, in regard to both slopes and slopes and any grading that's being completed minimal as possible, be stabilized and match existing conditions. Platform going in place of two structures that are solid structures located within the floodplain, and being elevated up to an elevation that is above 100-year floodplain elevation of Cobb's Creek.
Okay, thank you. And do you have an opinion as to whether or not the proposed improvements and the location of the platform would have any detrimental effect on the health, safety, or general welfare of the residents of Haverford Township? Okay, and what is your opinion?
My opinion is that these proposed improvements would have no adverse effect on the health, safety, and general welfare of the township.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have for this witness.
Thank you. Ed,
Yes, I have a few questions.
I knew you would.
I'm looking at your National Flood Hazard Relator Permit map that you have included as one of your exhibits, and there seems to be an associated floodway with this creek.
Which page are you on there?
NHS.
My question is, there seems to be disturbance within the floodway of that, at your proposal. That floodway line is not shown on your exhibit A8.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
The question is, the floodway line is not shown. Is part of the structures that you're talking about or the disturbance to put in the conduit bank within the floodway of the creek?
The floodway platform is within the floodway.
Have you consulted the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection for any permitting requirements for these?
We have had correspondence, but at this point, nothing is being progressed.
Okay, so you're aware that there will be permitting requirements.
We're aware that the conversation needs
There will be permit requirements for at least the utility lines, if nothing else. Because the utility lines in the floodway would require permitting.
Yes, I think the exact routing of the floodway is very variable through there. And we are attempting to, and that's what that photo showed with the gabion basket wall, to see if some of these that instead of out and around it. These are still being worked through by our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing consultants. So we're fully aware that that potential does exist depending on how we finalize the actual conduit route.
So these aren't as shown, the final plans, so how are we going to approve disturbance to steep slope if you might disturb it in some other location?
I think the steep slopes would be off to the north, and anything that goes under that retaining wall would be a directional drill. which wouldn't be if anybody understands directional drill. You just set up a rig and it pushes the conduit through the earth, which would be the hope that that's an option.
Yeah, it would still require a permit because your drilling hole or your exit hole would be with disturbance within the floodway. Unless you change it from some way that I can't see that is right on the embankment there. Okay, well, we won't know that, but how you're going to disturb it.
Yes.
You weren't going to directional drill the entire slope?
I had a conversation with our MEP designer the other day and in an attempt to minimize some of these steep slope impacts. There are existing storm lines that run through some of these areas. We're not sure of depths and other conflicting utilities in the ground. They hope they could directional drill the majority of it.
Okay.
And I've been on some projects where it's amazing what they can do.
Mhm.
So that's the hope, but I agree that potentially it won't all be directionally drilled.
Okay, well, that would be definitely a way to avoid some of the impacts to the slope.
Yes.
Okay, the conduits, I'm not clear on. You said a bank of 6 conduits. What size are we talking about, these conduit banks?
I think they're 4-inch conduits.
So it'd be 6 4-inch conduits?
Yes.
And I see there's 2 banks that are going up over the hill.
One is there's a new PPL transformer, Pico transformer that's going in. Yes, I think it's 2 4-inch, 2 6 conduit duct banks that are all 4 inches to service these generators, as well as any electrical that will be required for the chiller. I think there's a pumping enclosure on that platform as well.
Okay, the other area I see within the limited disturbance is not within the floodplain, but there seems to be, I don't know what that disturbance would be on Exhibit A8 on the uppermost, in the center, in the uppermost left-hand corner. What is that disturbance in that area for?
Underground storm line that is there, and I think we'll be doing that facade. So that would be for to put it back a 6 or 8-inch underground line, along with redoing that southern wall of that facade.
And that slope has to be impacted?
Yes. Put in that new line and the facade.
And the line, can you explain a little bit about where that stormwater line is discharged?
It conveys part of the pavilion project that the client did back in 2014. Grading permit plan. Roof drains that exist. Side of the lower half of the building are conveyed to an existing clean out. Top left corner. Along the southern face of the building. Ground pipe, stormwater bed area. All as part of that 2014 plan, which serves as the stormwater mitigation for that pavilion project. Hobbs Creek.
So there's an existing discharge from a underground storage or?
Yeah, it's a pipe bed. I think it's a couple 24-inch pipes wrapped in stone and
For infiltration purposes?
Yes, correct.
Okay, gotcha. Now, the other thing is the 2 buildings that were going to be removed, they appeared to be more like sheds than any type of permanent structure, is that?
I think, yes, they could be classified as a shed. One is a 20 by 12 A-frame type of building, and the other is a.
Do you know whether these were subject to any approvals from the township to put those in the floodplain originally?
Not have that information.
Would you accept the condition that no other structures will be put in the floodplain without township approval in the future?
Yes.
I have no other questions.
Jessica?
So in your, let me just get the exhibit number. So on page number 16 of the packet, it notes that the elevation of the top of the platform is 307 feet. And then on page number 20, it notes it as 306 feet. Which one is correct?
What was the second page you referenced?
Page 20.
20 is an architectural exhibit that was prepared more for the sake of architecture. It's a pretty picture. The 607 is the correct elevation.
The 307.
Sorry, yes, 307. Otherwise, it'd be 300. Yes. Yes, so the architectural exhibits, we just wanted to include in our H&H report for the sake of a visual, to be able to see exactly what this elevated platform was going to look like.
And what is the elevation of the floodplain?
Through our modeling, we did extensive survey at the top of the 100-year elevation of 306.
Okay, so you'll be 6 inches above that
Yes,
with the grate.
and that would be the bottom of the platform.
The cooling tower itself is 19 feet on top of that platform. Is there any screening that's going in to block the sight lines of the cooling tower from the house?
I do know the MEP team is working on mitigating, reshuffling some things in an attempt to get that to be a lower number. Whatever it ends up being, the club members want this utility platform screened to the greatest extent possible by doing whatever they can with vegetative arborvitae or large pine trees of some kind. So yes, it will be a screened utility platform at the end.
And with the exception of the conduit bank that runs underground to the house, all of the utilities are above the floodplain. I don't have any other.
I will say there's an existing sewer line that does run under the creek. I don't know when that was installed.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Bob.
Yes? Bill?
Sure. Kevin, just question. So the Gabion basket platform that's there now, which I think you'd said holds currently your backup generators, dumpsters, stuff like that, which presumably they're all going to be moved out. Was there a reason not to use the existing Gabion platform to house the new equipment?
It just, there are some equipment up there that isn't being taken out immediately. And the way the phasing of the project works, the new equipment won't be ready to go online immediately with demolition of the existing. So there will be a period where both will need to be in operation, or at least build the new stuff while the old stuff is still operating. And then the dumpsters, the dumpsters are up on that platform. They don't really have another place on site where they could relocate those.
So they're not removing everything that's on there now?
Absolutely. There's pretty much the existing composting bin, and there's other utilities, other uses that exist up on that higher level that it just wouldn't have made logistical sense to get that utility platform to be up on that higher level.
Okay, and so just for comparison purposes, so the equipment that's on top of the Gabion basket platform now,
Yes.
compared to the height of the new equipment that will be behind that, right?
Yes.
The platform will be behind that. How will will the new equipment exceed the height currently of stuff that's on the Gabion basket platform?
I think it has the intention to be close. Again, the chiller tower, which the MEP engineers are trying to reduce in height, if that is ending up being 19 feet tall, it would probably extend above the existing utility equipment that is on that upper level. But at this point, we are not certain how high that elevation of that cooling tower is going to be. I think if you go back to sheet 16, you can see platform top elevation off to the left. Is about 2 or 3 feet lower than that upper elevation.
But your equipment will make up the difference and exceed the current equipment that's on top of the platform.
The potential exists that could happen, yes.
And then,
And I think the proposed generators are slightly slightly larger than the existing ones that are there, so it probably be a little taller as well.
the whole area, I presume, is fence for security, right?
Well, there's a gate there that I think opens and closes, but I don't think I think it's more of an aesthetic gate that, it's a solid walled gate. At this point, I don't think the area is gated.
I do not have any other questions. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, to follow up on Ms. Vitale's questions, so you clarified that the platform is going to be at 307 and that your calculations have the floodplain at 306'6", which is, it's only 6 inches above, is that right?
Correct, yes.
So
Bottom of the platform.
the code 182.604 talks about, setting the basement at least, it references a basement as being at least 1'6" above the floodplain. Is there any reason that you couldn't set the platform another foot higher?
It's kind of a balancing act of trying to make sure it's not too high up in the air, that it does cause more of a concern standpoint for everybody involved.
I'm just thinking that, you're talking about the top of the platform, but then there's a structure that has a thickness that will actually drop below the floodplain.
No, to clarify, the 307 elevation is the bottom of the platform.
The bottom of the platform.
Correct.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said it was the top. Okay.
Like the steel graded platform will have a thickness to it. The bottom elevation of that will be at 307 above.
Okay, but what about the beams that hold up the grating?
It'll all be the same unit. The bottom of the beams will be at 307.
Okay. Bottom of the beams. Okay.
Yes. The only thing that will be lower than 306 and a half will be the concrete caisson foundations
And the stairs that go up.
and the stairs that go up.
Is there any piping that enters the units from below?
Those details are still being determined, but if you do look at the architectural exhibit of the caissons, those are sheets 18, 19, 20, the H&H report. If you look at sheet 20, it does show the actual representation of what these conduits, these caissons would look like. We assumed it would be a 2-foot cylinder that went all the way up to the platform, where in reality, it would just be a circular foundation sticking out of the ground with some much smaller length steel I-beam or some other support structure.
No, I'm sorry. I'm referring to the mechanical conduits that are in the duct bank that we were talked about before, the 4-inch or 6-inch conduits. Those will come up out of the ground and into the bottom of the unit, right?
Correct.
So those will be in the floodplain briefly as they come up, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. I guess my biggest concern was making sure that we clarify that the bottom of the structure is above the floodplain, and I just wonder if we wouldn't want that to be just a little bit higher. And then all my other questions, I guess you helped clarify that we're basically taking the 520 square foot existing and moving that up. That was what I couldn't understand in the original packet, so I understand that better now. I don't have any other questions. Oh, I'm sorry. One more question. There's no storage of any. There's a whole long list of chemicals that are prohibited in the floodplain. Will there be any storage of any dangerous substances on this platform or under it?
I'm not familiar with the list, but from what the MEP engineer has been telling us, I don't believe so. Generators, but I know those are all EPA certified and double walled and spill proof and things like that.
I won't name them all, but the things like chlorine, ammonia, sodium, sulfur, those are pesticides. There's a whole long list, and so we'll just make sure that there's a condition if we were to approve this that none of those could be stored there, either under it or on top of it.
That is acceptable.
No other questions.
Okay. Go ahead, Mark. I have no.
Okay. Next witness.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
Paula Lynn Kelly. I'm the General Manager, Chief Operating Officer at Marion Golf Club. We're located at 450 Ardmore Avenue, Ardmore, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Ms. Kelly, what is your occupation?
I'm a General Manager. Hospitality, private club management.
So you're in charge, you're the top person
Yes.
in the administration of the club.
That is correct.
All right. Would you give the board a little background on the project itself, how we come to be here this evening?
Yeah, so we've been outside, but this is all really for inside. And the project itself is focused on this infrastructure upgrade that you're seeing outside to get us indoors. We're really working mostly in the basement of the clubhouse to bring in all the utilities and to make us a little more operationally efficient inside the clubhouse. And that includes adding a secondary kitchen, which is going to be located in the basement of the kitchen of the building. And we're going to be connecting the existing building underground to the pavilion that was put in 2014. Currently, there's no access underground to get from one side of the building to the other, and that's an operational issue for us. So that's something we're going to get corrected in this. There's a little bit of space by our member bar area outside, just a shifting of the bar. And on our south terrace on the pavilion, a small add to the edge of it, just to increase some capacity space. We're anticipating the project's about 18 months, and we're hoping to start this summer sometime.
So operationally, would you describe the need for both the chiller and the generators?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Marion is not everything is air conditioned or properly ventilated inside the clubhouse. It's obviously a very old building. There's really 4 structures that are there. The original house, the original barn, they were connected at one point, and then the pavilion was added. So we look like one building, but we're really 4. And therefore, all of the systems inside are kind of all over the place. We have a fair amount of places in the building, including the men's locker room, which are not air conditioned. And so we're really trying to upgrade what we're doing and be able to take those areas and be cooled and ventilated. And we don't have the capacity right now. So the chiller or the cooling tower that we have now doesn't have the capacity to do what we need to do in the future. And so we need to increase those capacities. As well as the generators, we are generated fully operational right now. We have 2 separate generators, one on the pavilion and one on the main building. When we add in the kitchen, when we add in getting these other facilities temperature controlled, it increases the capacity size of the generators, and therefore we need to do what we're doing outside in the floodplain to make that happen.
Okay. And you heard Mr. Richards testify. Is there an ability to locate this equipment anywhere else, in your opinion?
In my opinion, no. We've looked at a lot of locations. I think everybody knows we're pretty landlocked. The golf course is one step down from the terrace. We're not going that direction. The other direction is parking, which is, 202 spaces. The other direction is Ardmore Avenue, and we can only go so far because then we're stopped by Cobb's Creek and the septic track. So the generators are already in that location. We can't get them all where we need to, so doing the platform became the answer to it, which then caused us to want to get out of the floodplain. And in order to do that, we had to go to the platform.
Okay. Has the clubhouse renovation plan been reviewed by the Haverford Township Historic Commission?
Yes, we met with them on Monday, and they approved the project.
Okay. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not the proposed platform would have any adverse effect on the health, safety, or general welfare of the residents of Haverford Township?
I do, and I do not think it would be adverse in any way.
Okay. And in particular, are you concerned about not knowing that you're not an engineer, but can you tell us anecdotally if this area is prone to flooding?
Yes, I've been at the club 7 years now. We've had some pretty bad flooding in this area in the last 7 years. This area has never gotten wet. Where the garden is, which is on the lowest part of that, just over the creek, we've not seen that happen. In recollection of anybody who's been there, has not seen this area flood at all. It's obviously in the floodway for FEMA, so it is what it is. But we haven't actually seen that happen, and I think that for us, we have a comfort level. Unfortunately, we got to put it on a platform. We'd prefer to put it on the ground for lots of reasons, but we know we can't because of the floodway. So I'm not concerned at this point that we've got issues in the floodway.
Okay. And the sheds that are being removed, you're storing things in there that aren't getting flooded? Is that your testimony?
That's correct. We have stored furniture for the summer from the terraces and other things in those containers, and they've never flooded.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for this witness.
Bill?
Just a question. So as you're doing all this upgrade, given the age of the house, are you replacing wiring inside the house also to bring that to a more modern standard?
That's a good question that I'm not sure I can answer specifically. Clearly downstairs where we're digging and adding the new kitchen, there's going to be all new spaces there. So I think the answer is yes, to some degree. The question of whether they're using existing ductwork when it comes to the areas that already have HVAC, my guess is some of them will probably stay, but everything else is being upgraded.
I don't have any other questions. Jesse?
2 questions. Were there any comments from the historical commission you could share with us?
The only thing that the Historical Commission was worried about, and we had a preliminary meeting with them and then our official meeting on Monday, was some of the discussion that's been here, which is the height of the platform. Sorry, the height of the chiller that's on the platform. We don't like it. We're not happy with it at Marion, and we're working really hard, as Kevin explained, with the engineers to find a way to get that height down. Again, we're pretty limited by how high it can be, what we want to get air conditioned in the building. And so we're currently continuing to look at options. And we shared with them that, we'll certainly follow back to let them know where that level ended up coming to, whether it's that chiller or something different.
And the storage that you referred to that's in the container that's being removed, I assume you're taking measures to store that elsewhere?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot of clean out.
So
A
that
lot of
storage-
dumpsters at Marion recently. So we're clearing a lot of stuff out in anticipation of the project. So we're hoping that some of this won't be needed at the end of it.
Okay, right, so you're not asking to put a storage, or if you do, it would be a condition that you would have to come back for approval to put another storage unit?
Correct,
outside.
yeah. We wouldn't put anything else without coming back.
No other questions?
Jessica?
You mentioned that you have an existing cooling tower that's serving the house. Is that being removed as part of this project?
It will be once the new one is online. And that one is currently in the service area where deliveries are coming in and out.
Okay,
It'll actually, our new entrance and deliveries will come in there.
okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Yeah, I did miss this, but Jesse brought it up earlier about the idea of storage. You will not use anything, the area underneath, it is graded, so it's not a solid thing, so it's not like a roof, but you agreed that you wouldn't use that area underneath the platform where these chillers are going to be and generators for any type of storage.
No, no storage at all.
Thank you.
Just open ground.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Nothing further, just move admission of the exhibits, which is
A1 through, we got through that? 8.
1 through 8.
Okay, admitted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify? Anyone that received regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case, and a decision will be rendered either this evening or at our next regularly scheduled meeting on, somebody hit me with the date.
April 4th.
The 4th.
Somebody's trying to escape.
All right, let's take 5. I'm going to give them the karate chopper with me in. We'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, March 21st, 2024. Ed, are you prepared to vote on that case? I am. Jessica, are you prepared?
I am.
Bill?
I am.
Jesse? Yes. And rather than that case, I should say Z2405, Marion Golf Club. Ed, do you want to take that decision, please?
I will. I vote for a motion to approve the requested variances with following conditions. 1, the floodplain would not be used for any future structures without township approval. 2, the area under the platform will remain free and clear, not used for any structures that would impact the floodplain. 3, construction will be completed within 18 months of this approval. And 4, the construction will be completed in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Jessica?
I agree.
Bill?
I agree.
Jesse?
I agree.
And so do I. That application is approved with those conditions, 5-0. Good luck. You're welcome. Our next case, Z24-6, Kathy Neely, owner of 3244 Darby Road, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2204 00017700, who seeks a special exception from the provisions of section 182-802B1 to increase a portion of the ceiling height of the second floor family room such that the ceiling height will be uniform. The height of the structure will not increase. Property is a R1, low-density residential, located in the fourth ward. Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
All right, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. And I will swear you first. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Kathy Neely, 3244 Darby Road, Haverford, PA 19041.
Okay, and Kathy, you may have heard the attorney in the prior case identify exhibits that he made part of his case. So there are items attached to your application. To make them part of the record, something that you can refer to, and we can refer to during the case, they need to be marked as exhibits. So I see a plot plan.
Yes,
Do you have any other exhibits that you want to mark this as an exhibit to refer to?
Yes.
And do you have any other exhibits, photos, or anything like that?
Mr.
Diagrams?
Smith, did you have anything that you wanted to give to the group? I thought we talked about using those photos from the Historical Review Board packet. Okay. Okay.
Do we have copies, Gary, someplace? No. Okay. Are they critical to your presentation?
Mr. Smith seems to think so.
You would have clarified things, I think. Oh, no, I tried to explain to you guys earlier, yes, but things a little bit.
But you live close by, right, Kath?
I'm sorry?
You live close by.
I do.
Would you like us to take a break and you can go get them if you want?
I would need to make 6 copies.
No. You can just
And
give us
so,
one.
I'm sorry?
You could just give us one copy and we could share them. But
Well, I can give you this.
let's see how the case proceeds, right? And if during the course of this hearing.
Actually, I can show you.
Okay. And can we take those from you? Can we keep those?
So this is the proposed renovation right here. And the
Okay. What is this site plan, Bill?
room that I'm looking to renovate,
Wait, hold on 1 second, Kat.
yes,
So this is an existing conditions plan? This is. Okay. And these, so are these separate plans, Ernie, or are these two
Yeah, they're separate.
parts of the same?
No. Well, looks like they're,
so the difference is the existing is
That's the existing? Then I would make A2 or A3 existing elevation plan. And
That's
A2 is
two.
proposed elevation.
yes.
Have Arlene mark these, or can we just write it on there?
I just read.
Okay, so this will be A1. This will be 2. B3. Oops.
Who's the-
So Kathy, what you've been asked to be marked as exhibits are A1, which is the small version of your site plan of existing conditions. A2 is the
Proposed elevations
proposed elevations. A3 is a larger rendition
of the existing
of the
elevation.
existing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, please tell us a bit about what you would like to do.
This was part of the historical review packet that. So this is the interior of the room that I'm looking to see that I cannot stand up fully in that room. The which is why I want to raise the ceiling.
One.
So I believe that the two issues that
Hold on one second, Kev. I just want to get the exhibits marked and identified, and then we'll proceed. I think we're okay to mark that off.
Yeah.
One.
One.
What's that called? How many?
So it's 11. So A4 is a packet consisting of 11 pages with various pictures. It is titled Description of Renovation to 3244 Darby Road, Haverford, PA 19041. And I believe the applicant testified that this was utilized in, what was this submitted to?
it was submitted to the Historical Review Board, but I have not gone before them
Got
yet.
it. Okay.
You'll mark that, Aaron?
Yeah, my A4.
Okay, so A1 through A4 are admitted. So, and do you have a copy of this to refer to?
No, I do not,
Okay.
but that's okay.
So the picture on the first page,
The picture on the first page is the existing family room, second floor family room, which, as you can see, the ceiling is sloped and a person cannot stand upright in that room. So what's driving this is that the roof really needs to be replaced. So while I'm doing that, I would also like to raise the roof so that a person can stand upright and walk through the room. That's okay. So I believe what the board will be most interested to know is the current situation with regard to how far away from Darby Road this will be. And so, as you can see from the plans, the wall that runs parallel with Darby Road will just be extended. And I believe on the plans, on the proposed plans, you'll also note the proposed roof height. I believe that, without having it in front of me, I believe that the proposed roof height is 26 feet. The current height of the main house, I believe the roof is, I think it's 33 feet, the peak, and then I'm not sure about the chimney, but both of these, the proposed area would be under 35 feet, which is part of the zoning. If I could just look at the plan for a second, I can tell you.
And actually, I'm looking at the point bearing builder's plan, which we have marked as Exhibit A1.
Yes.
It has the zoning criteria and bulk area requirements, both required and existing, regarding building height. As indicated, it's a 35-foot required maximum, and the existing is just less than 35.
Yes, so the two areas, I think I highlighted on there, the two areas are the starred areas here, where the required front yard is 50 feet, and right now, almost on Darby Road. I have about 2 feet off of Darby Road. And then the other issue is the side. So that's what's existing. But I just want to point out that the project will just go straight up. There's nothing that will fringe on.
You're not changing your setbacks.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at. I'm not changing the setbacks.
so.
So
Just,
regarding the ceiling, you proposed. So the existing house is 28 feet to the peak and 31 and a half to the top of the chimney. And the proposed addition would be 26 feet.
yes? Questions?
So I mean, the way it's was advertised is it says the height of the structure will not increase, but clearly the height is increasing of the existing roof. I think what you're describing is you're not going to make the addition any taller than the tallest existing portion of your roof. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I think that's very different than saying that you're not raising the current roof, because
Yes, it is very different.
Okay.
Yes.
so you're very clearly making a much taller roof localized to this part of the home.
Than what is existing, yes.
And so you said that you've prepared a packet for the historical commission, but you were not able to meet with them yet? Is that correct?
Yes.
And when will you be meeting with them?
I believe their next meeting is April 11th.
And I assume you'll be seeking their input, and you would, if we were to grant the variance, you would accept as a condition any feedback or approval from the historical commission?
Yes, but I do want to make you aware that the house itself is not on the historical record.
Is there an outbuilding on your site that is on the historic record?
No, it is not on the historical record. The federal school is across the street, which I believe is what is driving the historical review board to be involved.
What is the current use of the room that you're increasing the height of?
It's a family room, but the interior will change. There will be an office and a family room.
And so you mentioned that the roof is in poor condition and it needs to be replaced. Could you describe that in further? Is it currently leaking? Has it caused damage on the inside of the house?
You can see from the photo that it has caused some damage.
I haven't seen the photo yet. How long have you lived in the residence?
I've lived there for 21 years.
So, do you have any idea how old the current part of the home that you're renovating is? Is it the original to the site, or do you know if it was an addition over time? And if you don't know, that's okay. You can say that too.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't have any other initial questions, but I'm sure I'll come up with another one later. I'll yield.
Any kind of limited time.
So, Kathy, I think what you were saying is in the packet on the second page of Exhibit A4, where it shows ceiling damage.
Yes.
That's the water infiltration that you're getting?
Yes.
Necessitating the roof
There's a
replacement.
skylight there.
So the portion of the house to the, I guess it's to the north of the section that you're going to build up vertically. That's a later addition, it would appear. Is that right?
The front part of the house is a later addition, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned an office. Are you running a business out of your house?
No, I'm not.
No, it's just a sort of a home office to.
A home
Yeah,
office,
okay.
yes. And it's also for resale, because I think since COVID, people are working from home. And so I think a home office becomes very valuable for resale. I'm not going to be able to live there forever. So, I'm thinking about long-term, who would be interested in purchasing the house and what sorts of things they would be interested, what they would want to make it more attractive to a potential buyer.
Right.
It's not moving to this board. Stick to why you need to repair this. So it's leaking. You're going to be doing repairs already. And
Yes.
obviously, the ceiling you showed us in Exhibit A4 in one of the photos, the cover photo, is at such an angle to basically render a large portion of that room usable
Yes,
for anyone over 3 feet tall.
yes.
All right. And you're not raising the roof on the, what I think you referred as the front of the house, but the more northern portion, which I think is probably newer?
No, that will be
And what
left
is
as
that
is.
portion of the house used for? I know it's hard on the street, but is it
That
just living
portion of-
space?
Yes.
Well, look, you've done a terrific job of maintaining this house. I know it's not on the historic register, but when they were considering the Coopertown Historic District, creating it, it would have been a contributing property in that. And so, I'm glad to see you're keeping it up so well. Thank you.
Jessica?
Yep.
What do you need this speech?
All of this?
While the members are reviewing the plans, your opinion and testimony that the proposal will not substantially injure or detract from the use of neighboring properties or alter the characteristic of the neighborhood?
Well, I want the addition to look like the rest of the house. I think it would be very not in keeping with the feel of the house to make it look contemporary or,
So the proposal would be consistent with the design of the house and
Yes.
and the surrounding neighborhood?
yes.
I mean, do you also own 3250?
I do not. I believe they do.
So the question I have is whether what is drawn is truly the minimum relief required and why you would need to raise the roof on both sides, because the plans seem to show that you are increasing the height on both the rear and on the Darby Road side. And is that required as part of this work?
No, it's not required. It's what I would like to do.
Okay.
I would like the ceiling to be a little bit higher than what it is.
Okay.
I would just add, for purposes of review of a special exception, minimum relief necessary is not necessarily an element of that. Supreme Court has consistently said that a special exception is neither special nor an exception. They're traditionally permitted uses provided that the criteria in the zoning code are satisfied.
I don't have any other questions right now, Bob.
I have no question.
Anything else you'd like to add, Kathy?
No.
Then you can have a seat.
Okay.
I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Come on up. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Full name and address, please.
Thomas Dees, we own the DEAS.
What's your address, Thomas?
We own the two lots on the Marple Road side of the Neely property, both 3250 Darby Road and 19 Marple Road.
What would you like to tell us, Thomas?
Well, I can answer one of the unanswered questions about the age and character of the house. My wife, Pamela Gardner Dees, is with me. The entire property was purchased in 1908 by Pam's great-grandfather, John George Gardner, whose initials are in the gable of end of this house. He owned Montgomery Nurseries. He was a landscape architect and was a longtime resident of the township, owned a 19 and a half acre property, of which the present Neely home, our barn, which is at 3250 and is an historic property on the registry of the township, and our house at 19 Marple Road, which is also an historic property. And the structure that was questioned that is on the Dartmouth Road side of the Neely house is actually the Cooper's building, after which Coopertown was named. And so I'm sorry that we got the picture that was handed around of the interior room that's proposed to be changed, but we're not able to access the other information. And some of the discussion went on not using the microphones, and between my wife and me, we were unsure exactly what is being proposed. So I have a question, and I think I understand from Kathy Neely's last clarification that the roofs on both the Darby Road side and what I would call the back of the house, or the part away from Darby Road, are being raised to make a uniform ceiling height in the room. Is that what I understand? Yes. Is that correct? Thank you. So I just have a question about, in connection with these roof changes, the guttering and the discharge of the roof water, how that's going to be handled. There is, for our property at least, according with the changes that we've made at the townships to comply with township requirements, we've constructed 2 stormwater retention systems. We've done a complete hydrographic study, and we've done a fair bit to attempt to control stormwater, at least from our property, but I'm uncertain what stormwater retention and where the guttering for the new roof is going to obviously come into downspouts, where those downspouts are going to discharge, and how that is going to be handled. So that's the question I have.
Well, we'll ask Kathy that question to get some clarification. But this isn't like a land development project that's going to create a whole new runoff issue, right? I mean, it's the same roof area, basically, just changing the pitch of part of the roof area, but we always impose a condition on any sort of improvement approval, if there was an approval, that the water runoff be directed so as not to adversely impact the neighboring properties. I mean, I don't think a hydrostatic study would be appropriate for a
Mr.
project
Kane,
this
I mean, the question is based on the calculation that you referred to, in a relation between the impermeable surface and the surface that's able to absorb the water runoff, assumes that the discharge has the whole of the permeable surface of the lot to be able to absorb that runoff. But if instead that's directed through pipes and corrugated 3-inch pipes that run near to the property line on our property, then those calculations and assumptions that you've got don't necessarily work with in this instance. And that's the basis for my question.
Ed,
Yeah, the issue is on, that I hear you say, they're not increasing the impervious surface, they're changing the roof line. And so the only thing that they would need to do for the zoning is on the front of the property. The back of the property doesn't even come to the zoning today because it's not in violation of the setback area, I don't believe. So the question is, if they provided that the gutters would not discharge in a fashion that would be different from what's currently occurring, would that be satisfactory?
Well, I think that misses the point that the gutters on the front of the property, the Darby Road property, run through 3-inch PVC pipes and then into corrugated pipes that ultimately discharge after many yards of run onto our property.
Your concern is about an existing condition.
Well, a condition to discharge the roof water collected through downspouts, though that guttering and the downspouts are, I think I understand, going to be changed, and I'm trying to understand whether their discharge will run into the permeable surface on the Neely lot or be discharged through pipes that run near the property line on our property, causing excess runoff.
We concur that, we do concur that this project is not increasing the amount of runoff. It's just the idea of where it's running from. And
yes.
okay, we just need to get testimony from the applicant on how that's going to change. And that would be
If it's going to change.
if it's going to change.
Okay.
Well, and
Anything
if
else?
the existing measures for the runoff are in satisfaction of the township requirement that runoff not be redirected by the homeowner, but allowed to follow its natural course, not be piped or discharged through long runs of that I've described.
Mr. Dees, do you currently experience runoff from the applicant's property onto yours?
Yes.
And can you describe the nature of that and how it has adversely affected your property, for the record?
We've done quite a bit of planting, and at least one tree, according to our arborist, was died and needed to be replaced because of excess water. The area at the corner, which would be the southwest corner of the Neely property, is very swampy, and there are times when during a heavy rain there's a rapid runoff. We've actually built a swale that was designed by Momini and Associates to try to contain that, but there are times when the swale really divides our property, and if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do. But there are times when the ground is so swampy there that it cuts off the back part of our property. It's difficult to walk.
So it's not just on the back corner of her property, it's actually on your property that it's become inundated?
Well, water flows downhill, and we're downhill from them, yes.
What swales can overcome that
And we have
problem?
that,
Yeah,
but
right.
despite that, and despite the engineering that went into that,
Right.
there's still a tremendous amount of runoff, because the runoff isn't using the permeable area that the Neelys have. Instead, it's run through long runs of corrugated pipe and PVC pipe that themselves discharge near the property line, our property line.
And how do you know, I'm assuming those are all underground?
No, they're above ground.
They're all above ground.
They're surface laid. I actually have pictures that I could provide.
Okay,
I'm sure Kathy wouldn't dispute that.
okay, thank you.
Any questions, Jess?
Other than the water runoff issues, do you have any other issues with the additional height of the proposed area? And I don't know if you had a chance to review the drawings.
The only issue I would have, or question I would have concerning the height of the roof is, we are immediately next door, and as the board noted, the structure comes right up to the property line, maybe just within a foot of the property line, the side yard setback. And so if, as part of raising the roof, there were floodlights added to the eaves, such that those floodlights from the higher positioning could cause unwanted glare on our property, we would hope that a condition that might satisfy that concern would be restriction on flood lighting and a use of low-level lighting for the outdoor patio areas that would be there.
Now, from your home, you look at the back or the front of the applicant's home?
The back, what I would call the back, the side away from Darby Road. We're
And-
to the west. We have the whole corner.
And
If,
Ms. Neely, where, just so I, it's not, we don't have a better order, but what side of the property is where you're proposing the height increase or the increase of the roof?
The majority, the part of the house that runs parallel to Darby Road is the wall that would rise the most.
Kathy, I'm sorry, is it the part that faces our property or the Darby Road side?
The Darby Road side.
Okay, that's,
That's why I was trying to inquire whether it was actually going to impact
well,
it or not, yeah.
yeah, you know, as I said, some of the discussion, we weren't able to hear, and I haven't seen these plans that have just been provided.
All right, Jessica,
I don't have any questions.
anybody else? Is there anything else you want to add, Thomas?
Yeah.
He wants. He wants.
You want?
Yeah.
You want to see a copy of this, Ms. Neely? Okay.
I mean, I will just reaffirm that, you know, we have an interest in this house because of its long association with my wife's family, and I do applaud the efforts that the Neelys have made to maintain the exterior of the house, and even though it's not itself actually on the Historic Commission's record as an historic property, they've maintained it very well, and I have no issues. The only issues I have, just to summarize, would be raising the height of the roof, portends some possibility that floodlighting could be on the eaves that might adversely affect us, and the guttering and the downspouting in connection with the new roof. I would like to be sure that the discharges are absorbed in as much of the permeable area of the Neely property and not run overdue to our property.
And for the record, what you've submitted that we have marked as Exhibit P1 is a photo, I'm guessing taking from your side of the property line, showing the corrugated pipe that you were discussing earlier.
Yes.
And, Mr. Dees, how long approximately does that pipe run from the applicant's house to the property line? What is that distance? I mean, roughly
30 yards?
30 yards? Okay. And do you, well, we'll talk to the applicant about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kath. Bill?
Kathy, question. The applicant submitted a picture showing this black corrugated pipe that runs over to the property line. I presume that's on your property, and what is that connected to? Do you know?
A downspout.
Is it a downspout in the area of the roof line that you are changing or increasing the height of?
I believe that the downspouts do all drain into that
Okay.
pipe
And-
currently.
Right. So you've heard people talk, and you heard the prior case that, you know, we try to condition any approvals that we might give on that, you know, the applicant will control water runoff on their property so as not to adversely affect a neighboring property. And
Yes.
this kind of goes to the heart of that question.
Yes,
You know, if everyone steered all the water off their property and discharged it at the property line, we'd have a problem, right? We'd have people up in arms. So just have you thought about shortening that pipe so that the water that does come through there can absorb into your property before it gets to the property line?
Well, I certainly don't want the Ds to be in a situation where they're being flooded. But I do want to say that Darby Road is really, when we get very heavy rains, Darby Road is really a creek. And the water management on Darby Road in front of my property is really, I get a lot of runoff from Darby Road that does not have anything to do with what is coming off the roof.
Understand.
And my property is higher in elevation than Mr. D's.
Right.
And as he mentioned, water runs downhill. So when there are heavy thunderstorms or just water in general, there's nowhere for that water to go except down over my property onto my permeable surfaces. I'm not directing that away with piping or anything like that. It's naturally coming out onto my permeable surfaces and going downhill, and it's a pretty good slope going down to his property.
I got it.
So, I'm not happy about the water that gets on my property from Darby Road. So, but it is what it is, unless the township wants to install additional drainage, which frankly I think is needed. There's a drain outside my house that literally roars with how much water is in
And
it.
that's outside the scope of our authority
Okay.
and the
Well, I'm
purview of
just-
this case. So I suppose it's just a simpler question.
I think it's somewhat relevant to the nature of the water flow.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's on the record.
Yeah.
So this pipe, I mean, does this take all your water and,
It's not all the roof water, no, but it is off of the area that is
That you're-
up for discussion.
Being effective.
And let me ask just a couple other questions if I can. So is your plan tentatively to when you raise the roof here over this section of the house,
Yes,
will you simply be extending the existing gutters or downspouts up to the new height?
yes.
So you weren't planning to change the discharge of the water from the existing downspouts? It's
No.
just, okay. And were you planning to put floodlights under the new eaves that will be higher than they are now?
Well, I don't have floodlights there now, so that really wasn't, I do appreciate that they don't want glaring lights on their property. I do appreciate that. Frankly, I don't like glaring lights either. So.
I have a neighbor who has those glaring lights and it's maddening. So
It is,
I can
and I'm not-
empathize with that.
Yes.
So would you accept as a condition that there not be any lighting installed with in connection with this?
Well, I do
On
need
the
some
exterior,
outdoor.
spotlights, any new lighting?
I would agree to that, yes.
And would you be willing to at least shorten this pipe so that it discharges not at the property line, but let's say halfway between where it currently discharges, or halfway between your house and the property line, somewhere in that 30-yard range?
Well, I do think I think the whole thing needs to be looked at.
I'm
You
sure
know,
it does.
I don't want the Ds to be flooded out by my home.
Right.
I'm not looking to do that. And frankly, I just didn't really realize that it was the problem that it is. So, I definitely will look at that. I don't want to cause any problems
Yep.
for my neighbors. So I would like us to coexist.
Solution, right?
Well,
During the permitting process, will someone be reviewing that?
Good question. I don't know if,
you're not going to go before planning, right? And it's outside the scope of historic, I presume. You can appreciate, I think, the perception that when you pipe your discharge, your roof drains, right to your property line, it does adversely affect your neighbors rather than yourself.
But I'm not 100% certain that it is right at the property line.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm
Yeah.
not certain that that is the case. But, you know, I understand. I get the message.
Let me just ask one question then. You estimated that the distance between the edge of your house and the D's property line is about 30 yards, right? Do you have an estimate of the length of that pipe that's in the picture?
I don't, because to be honest, I didn't really realize that this was going to come up for discussion. Had I known that, I would have taken measurements and I would have been better prepared. But I did not know that this was going to come up, and therefore I'm rather uncomfortable speaking. I can't speak factually.
Okay. Well, let me just ask one question. Let me just ask one question. Does the pipe approach the property line?
Yes.
Yes, the end of the pipe. And
Yes.
it otherwise connects to your house?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair.
Yes.
We're going to take 5 minutes. Go ahead, Eric.
Good.
Resume the meeting of Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board on Thursday, March 21st, 2024. Any other questions or issues you guys want to address? Jesse? No. Bill?
No, other public comment? I don't know.
I'll ask. Ed?
No.
Jessica? All right, is there anyone else that received certified mail that wishes to testify? Anyone that received regular mail? With that, all right, we'll close the record on this case, and the decision will be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on, April 4th? On April 4th. Now. We have to, and Jess, you have minutes?
Yes, Ernie submitted minutes from our February 1st meeting, and I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wait, we have a board member that's not going to be here at the next meeting, so we're going to do the decision now. If, Jessica, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Bill, are you prepared? Ed, are you prepared to vote? Yes. Jesse? Yes. Bill?
I am.
And so with respect to KZ 24-6, Kathy Neely, owner of 3244 Darby Road, Bill, will you please take that decision?
Sure. With respect to case C 24-6, I would vote to grant the special exception requested by the applicant, subject to the following conditions. The applicant will comply with all conditions and requirements of the Historical Review Commission. Second, the applicant will ensure that all water runoff from the proposed addition to the house shall be controlled so as not to adversely affect neighboring properties. The applicant will complete the project within 1 year in accordance with the notes of testimony tonight.
Okay. All right. Jessica?
I concur.
Ed?
I agree.
Jesse?
I agree.
And so do I. That application's approved with conditions 5-0. Please try to work out the water situation with your neighbors.
Could I ask a question about that?
And you might want to talk to the township engineer.
How will that be measured?
It can't be any worse than it is now. Let's start with there. And I think that you probably have some opportunity to,
Improve the condition.
improve the existing condition. Just the run from your roof drains that go to this side, either shortening the pipe, redirecting it over more of your own property, or perforation into the pipe so it has a better chance to release on your property before it gets to the neighbors.
All right. Any other administrative matters? We're adjourned.